But here's the really cool thing. Let me show you what you can do with Code City. I can actually run this every iteration, which I do every Friday, and watch this. This is iteration 1. Watch this. Ready? There's iteration 2, 3, 4, iteration 5, iteration 6. Woo, did you see 6? 7, 8. And I can go backwards and forwards to say, what did we do in our iteration? And as an architect, I love this analysis because now, but look, this is what I want to really show you though. You see these gradients? Those are all the hills. And look at this. Package upon package. You see these 3 classes? That's, by the way, the SMS package. Your notification.sms. There's 3 buildings there. Those are those 3 SMS classes. I can immediately see this big hill right here. And look, there's a Plains Valley there. Whoa, that's interesting. Look at that city block with one large skyscraper in it and a whole bunch of small, tiny buildings around it. So anyways, this I love for the visuals of seeing exactly what I just showed you in the slideware. We have these tools to do this. The other one I want to show you costs money, though, but it does give you the information, Architect. By component, i.e. by package structure, what it shows me is, here's the package right here, but it shows me the number of classes, so I get a sense of the size. In this case, it's 21, but here's the significant thing here. The number of packages used, that's our efferent coupling is 5. Number of packages using me, 2. So I immediately, numerically, not visually, but numerically can see that there's 2 packages. If I click on that link, it shows me which packages are using me, and I can trace it down. Personally, I got to tell you, I really like the other tools because they're open source, they give good visualizations, but from an analysis perspective, this is pretty decent. All right, so now that we've got the information at hand about our coupling level, now, let's go to lunch. No. Now we get to actually do a little bit more refactoring, and that's to identify the domains. And so in our tour right now of breaking apart our monolith, boy, hey, I got an idea for next year's workshop at GIDS 19. Everybody come in with your application, and in a day, we'll break it apart. Yeah, I love it. Because in our tour, here's where we are. We've reflattened, or we've flattened and refactored. We've identified the dependencies. Now the next step is to identify the groupings. So in other words, those packages, those 4 packages at the top, are all part of customer. This is a logical grouping, but it's physically identified because here's our package structures. Customer info, preferences, notification, and app.tracking. Again, very few applications I've ever seen that have very consistent components. This is something that's usually skipped. This is architecture, and it's something that's usually skipped. Developers just start writing package structures, and some teams are doing one thing, and that's not part of customer, it's just tracking. This is an opportunity. Right-click, refactor, rename to app.customer.tracking. Do you see what we're doing? We're taking all of the package structures now and saying, let's form a domain. And that's all has to do with customer. And so there's my refactoring. Now, look what I'm doing. I'm able to start saying app.customer.star is all of our customer functionality. As a matter of fact, down here is payment. Invoicing, payment.history, app.returns, and app.credit. Again, right-click, refactor, rename from returns to payment returns. From credit, right-click, refactor, rename to payment.credit. Do you see what we're doing? We're identifying domains in our application now. This is not overly complex, by the way. These are fairly simple refactorings. Yes, they require testing and they require release. But the point is, look at this big area here, order management. Order history, order.placement, order cancel, customer.wishlist. Yeah. Wishlist is actually part of the order domain. Even though we say it's part of a customer, think about it. What's a wish list? It's a temporary shopping cart, isn't it? That's part of order. So what I'm going to do again, right-click, refactor, rename to order.wishlist. Okay. And finally, shipping. Now, once I've completely done this, now look what I can do. App.customer.star. Any package structure there has to do with customer. App.order.star. Every class and every package has to do with that. This is another refactoring, a physical refactoring that we would do to our code. The next step now is to identify the dependencies between these domains. And this is another litmus test to say, is this even feasible? Notice that we do have a dependency here between order management and customer. We can't do anything about that. Payment and shipping. Well, let's analyze this payment and shipping, because what you want to try to do in these domains especially is to reduce the dependencies. Now, what this means is there's a class here that's calling a class somewhere here. It's crossing that domain boundary. But look at this. If we analyze this, payment and shipping, there's only one class in shipping that's being used. Sometimes we have the opportunity to take that class, do a right-click refactor move over to another package that's in payment. That dependency is still there, notice, but now it's not crossing that domain. Okay? So that's the next step. Isn't this interesting? Do you see where we're going with these steps? Because what is that actually starting to look like? Services. Coarse-grained services. Yes.
Mark?
Yes. Yeah.
So this process of identifying the individual component and refactoring, it has to be iterative, right? We cannot just start with whole monolith and do it in single go. We'll have to break it iteratively in small chunks, right?
Correct. Yeah, so that's a good point. That I would have to wear my black shirt again. Well, I am wearing a black shirt. The one that says it depends. That is also, boy, isn't every answer it depends. It depends. It depends on the size. It depends on how clean the packages are. It depends how flattened they are and what the dependencies are. You know that X-ray that I showed you? If I run that, which literally any of you can run that during the break on your code if you have it there on your laptop, that really gives me an indication already about the effort. If I don't have a lot of dependencies, then I could probably do that in one piece. So I think...
one more thing. These tools, these are like if we have a whole monolith in a single, let's say, project.
Right.
But we have a monolith which is distributed, like we have some components in a tuxedo layer or some in Java layer or somewhere. Then we cannot run it together, right?
Correct. Yes, if I do have distributed applications in various areas, absolutely, each one would have its own analysis. Now, in your particular case, these domain relationships here would start crossing application domains. Absolutely, yes. And in that case, it would probably have to be iterative. Yes. And speaking of iterative, these refactorings usually are iterative. I put these as technical debt. Every iteration, we do a few of these refactorings to flatten. Once we have the flattening done, then we start doing the refactoring of the package structures. Because it is a moving target. So it's a good point that it's sometimes depending on the size and the volatility. If it is a moving target, then it's definitely iterative. If it's a pretty static code base and we're just going to modify it, sometimes I can do this singly. Yeah.
So it means that if we have larger distributed applications, then we are going towards that airline scoping effort, right?
It really is, especially if there's a lot of dependencies between those applications and various classes or not classes, but components. Yeah.
So if we have such kind of effort to put, then when we decide that because rewriting that such a big application again, it is not possible, and going into breaking it is also not easy.
That's right. So interestingly enough, we do need to identify the components. Sometimes in a very large, complex application, divide and conquer is the rule. And so the point is, to your point, what I might do in your particular case, where we have a very complex, highly distributed application, I might start identifying domains first, because then I can take a customer domain and start to refactor it and start to identify the dependencies and stuff. Take our order domain and do that, and do those kind of iterations. Yeah, it's a little harder, and you will, because of the hills, like that wish list. If the wish list, and this is an example of why I said, please flatten before you do this, because that wish list, if that's up on a hill, I can't right-click refactor rename.
Okay. Just one more question. That most of the time, the applications we have, like we deploy it for a customer which have other applications also, and the domains are, identified by our client. Like client force us to, domains that this is my domain and I want microservice to be deployed in. Your micro as a vendor to our client, we develop microservices, right?
Right.
So we are forced, the domains are decided by the business because they know the business, right?
Yes. So good point. What about these domains? These are logical domains. I would not necessarily, if you've got good command of the knowledge of your application, depending on the complexity, these are things the development team can come up with in terms of domains. These do not necessarily have to involve business users to define the domains. It depends on the complexity of your system. But these are just logical groupings. These are things that we as developers or as an architect particularly are looking at, or a senior dev, to say, this whole stage is our application. I need to start dividing it up. And these are just logical groupings. We may change those groupings. They may change, but you don't necessarily need to involve business users at this point.
But in our case, like we have a client who is using like 100 vendors,
Right.
100 for the whole system, which is very complex. So they have done this analysis, then they have decided, let's come up with 20 domains, which will be there.
Oh, sure. Okay.
So now we are forced to change our existing application, which previously was just under our control.
Yep.
And I mean, business has the most control now.
Yeah, so in that case, yes, if the business says these are our domains, you can certainly map to those domains as well. And then within there, we can do subdomains. Like customer, if that's too big of a domain, I will start dividing that up into, well, what do we do with a customer? You know, what things do we do? Well, we notify customers, we track customers, we manage customers. Well, those would be 3 subdomains then. And when I do my package structures, because don't forget, to your point, the business may own the domains and may define those. We own the code. We own our package structures. And so the point is, I am totally free to define as many, if the customer says, if the business says, we have a customer domain and I want you to use that, okay, that's fine. But I am totally free in my code to say I can create as many subdomains under customer as I want to. Customer.tracking dot blah, 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 blah. Customer.order dot blah, blah, you know, so on and so forth. So yeah, we can divide those up. But let me hold off on some of those other questions, and we can address those maybe at lunch, because I know we do have 3 minutes. Oh boy. So we're going to continue this, by the way, on part 3. But let me just say this. I wanted to bring this back up because I don't care, and this is a very important point that your questions made me think about this. What I care about when I'm moving and migrating applications is what I showed you in X-ray between components, i.e. package structures. I do not care in the least that I have a very high death of inheritance tree inside this class, or inside this package structure. I do not care at all that these classes are highly coupled and all talking to each other. And that's the point. We want to lift ourselves from the class level up to the component level, because it is components that we move around into services. And if we move a component, then we move those corresponding classes. So yeah, we don't care about the death of inheritance tree here. We don't care about the injection or interdependencies here, only across those packages. Now, let me just finish this section up so we can go to lunch, because we do only have 2 minutes left. Because where we were at was identifying these domains. And as a matter of fact, you know what? I think we just, oh, what a great time to go to lunch, because the very next step we're going to see is kind of the last pieces. Now, up to this, oh, you know, that is even a better break for lunch. You know why? You know where we're at? We have not broken apart our monolith yet. All we've done is prepared logically for it. We've done some refactorings. We have a very clean architecture. As a matter of fact, there's some business value there, isn't there? Because now I have a very clean architecture, which is going to be easier to maintain, less brittle, less dependencies. So what we're going to do after lunch is we're going to come back to this roadmap here, and we're going to see how to break apart the user interface, move to service-based, and finally to microservices. Okay. So, yeah, let's take a break.